Powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios, it's Football at 4.
Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast, and it is brought to you by the AC Airport. Plan your next vacation now. Create memories to last a lifetime. Start with nonstop flights from Atlantic City to Boston, Atlanta, San Juan, Miami. Book your low-cost flight at Spirit.com. Andrew DiCecco is here to give us his thoughts on how the Eagles filled their needs, what they still need to do, and how these players that were drafted will fit in to the Eagles' systems on both offense and defense. They took 5 players, 2 on the offensive side of the ball, 3 on the defensive side of the ball. How do we see these guys contributing in year number 1, if at all? Let's bring in Andrew DiCecco right now here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN for another edition of Football at 4. Andrew, what's going on, buddy?
Mike, doing well. How you doing today?
Draft in the books. I'm sure, it's bittersweet. You love the draft, but now you get to see how everybody fits in and what they do. Overall, they get Jordan Davis, number 13. I don't think it's a surprise pick. They make a trade up to get it. What did you think of the move to get Davis, what they had to give up, and the player they got?
Well, as soon as I saw them leapfrog Baltimore, that told me one thing, that they were going to get Jordan Davis, because when you look at what Jordan Davis is, that space-eating tackle, and I saw what the Ravens had in Derek Wolfe, Calais Campbell. They brought in Michael Pierce, who they had previously, but he was with the Vikings and then came back over. He underwhelmed last season in Minnesota. They're a little old there on the defensive line, so it's sort of, you saw the fit, and I was like, I think the Eagles are going to Jordan Davis here. And sure enough, they did. Now, they gave up a crucial pick to, in order to do that. But I think Baltimore would have made the pick. So I think that the Eagles saw their guy, did everything that they had to get him, and they obviously envision a big role for him as a rookie. And he is one of the most disruptive players in this draft, and that you can get him, plug him in. He's going to occupy double teams. He's going to open things up for everyone else. Even if he doesn't get to the quarterback, he's going to collapse the pocket and disrupt things from the line of scrimmage standpoint. So I really like the acquisition, because he can help in so many different ways.
Yeah, so explain to people, if you could, Andrew, the player Davis is, the style that he has, and why that will fit what John Gannon wants to do. And, they didn't have that player last year. So this is a guy that they simply did not have on the roster. So what does having him allow Gannon to do differently, maybe in the secondary?
Yeah, so having a guy who is a space eater like Jordan Davis will allow, it keeps the linebackers clean first and foremost, and allows them to sort of attack downfield. They don't have to absorb and take on as many blocks. Remember, the linebacking core is pretty undersized, so the linebackers last year were getting sort of swallowed up, and you saw a lot of gaping holes in the running game. You have Javon Hargrave and Fletcher Cox are 2 tremendously talented pass rushers, but as from a run game standpoint, Jordan Davis is head and shoulders above where they are and gives them and opens things up for everyone else. And I think not only that, I think it also helps the back end as well. So you're seeing all 3 levels impacted with this draft selection. Now it just becomes, can he keep his weight to at a safe level, to where they know that he can be relied on in critical situations and moments. And I mean, obviously you're not going to get much from him from a pass rush standpoint. He's going to absorb these double teams and do a lot of the things that don't show up in the box score.
Yeah.
Go
ahead.
He helps. He helps in a number of ways.
Yeah. And I know that, and you could probably speak more on this. This is a guy who has some ridiculous athletic traits in terms of the speed to be able to run guys down, the power. He was described earlier. I think Mosher on Monday called him a unicorn. I mean, was the juice worth the squeeze in your mind?
Absolutely. Like I said, I think he's one of those guys that you plug right in there, and you see his impact almost immediately because of what he's able to do. Just from a sheer physical standpoint, he's just so enormous, and you have to account for him. And he's going to drive offensive linemen backwards and open things up for everyone else. Guys are going to be able to get home to the quarterback. The linebackers are going to be free to roam sideline to sideline and chase and in pursuit. And the secondary is going to have a little bit of an easier time back there with the quarterbacks having to, they're not going to have all day to scan the field there. He's going to have a big mountain of a man coming through the middle with his big mitts up there, and he's going to have to hoist some passes up there. So, I mean, it makes the secondary look a little bit better as well. So I think it was a great signing and someone that you're going to see an immediate impact.
Well, and how does it help, in the secondary also against the run? I mean, that's another underrated part of this because, Andrew, we've been talking a little bit about this week, but I'd like to hear your thoughts is, Fletcher Cox had that whole incident last year where he's like, well, they pay me to rush the passer. I feel like John Gannon tried to get Fletcher Cox to maybe be this player, and Fletcher did not want to be this player.
Yeah, well, now they got the player that Jonathan Gannon wants, and you still have the best of both worlds because you have two good pass rushers in Fletcher Cox and Javon Hargrave. But, I mean, you sort of have a really good combination. The Eagles really didn't have that stout, burly defensive tackle to really clog up running lanes, and you saw the impact early in the season when a lot of the opposing running games were gashing the Eagles, and the Eagles weren't really able to put up any sort of a resistance. It was like they couldn't stop a nosebleed, to be frank with you. So now they're able to alleviate that, and hopefully that's the sign of things to come, and it opens things up for Nakobe Dean and Kaiser White and the safeties and everyone else.
Well, and we saw the safeties last year. There were so many times where people kept saying, they're playing so far, and, they had to be a little bit more a part of the run game because the Eagles were not very apt at stopping the run. They're hoping that those safeties don't have to have dual purposes as much as last year because, and look, I think it's going to be a really interesting story. See how you, in your mind, Andrew, how it plays out, how the playing time gets, split up between Davis, Hargrave, Fletcher. What happens with Milton Williams? Derek Barnett. They brought him back. Where does he fit in? Brandon Graham, I guess, said somewhere today that, hey, I don't mind if I'm not starting and playing every single snap. Like, they've got a lot of decisions and a lot of different exotic, odd-looking fronts that they can probably bring with this diverse style of personnel.
Yeah, and I think that's interesting, but it could also be a case-by-case basis, right? I mean, like if they're playing a team like the Tennessee Titans or any other team that's a run-dominant and they have a power running game, you might see Jordan Davis start the game, and he may see, more snaps than he ordinarily would. And then if you see a team that is really adept in the passing game, well, then you might see the pass rush prowess really take, center stage, and you see your defensive tackles and Hargrave and Cox get after the quarterback. So I think they have a really good blend and a mixture of diverse talents on that defensive line. So I'm interested to see how Jonathan Gannon chooses to deploy it.
At that spot, there's a lot of debate. In fact, we got text messages coming in, a couple people who were saying, Davis, don't like the pick, could have got Kyle Hamilton or Jermaine Johnson III. That name is Davis, Hamilton, Johnson. Which guy fits the best with what John Gannon wants to do?
I would say probably Jordan Davis. I think Kyle Hamilton would have been a fantastic pick as well. He's also, we use the word unicorn. He's also a unicorn and the type of player that is the mold that defensive coordinators are seeking to get this an athletic player that can cover these tight ends and running backs and still be able to cover the back half of the field. And he's just he's the modern day NFL defender. So it would have kind of been hard they were in position to take either player. But I think for what Gannon wants to do, based on the data that we have so far and what we've seen, I think Jordan Davis is probably the pick that he would have, that Jonathan Gannon. That seems like it had Gannon's name written all over it, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I like Hamilton too. I just feel Davis helps. As you mentioned, it helps all three levels. Hamilton's a great player, and I think he'd be a great fit, but I don't know that he helps all three levels the same way Davis does. Davis helps in the pass and in the run game,
right?
Where Hamilton, he might help in both areas too, but I think Davis just allows Gannon to do more. And guess what? See if you agree with me here. it allows the Eagles to kind of maybe not have as much talent at certain spots, like corner. Maybe they can get away. I don't know if they can get away, but maybe in their mind, they don't need to be relied on as much. You play a lot more split zone coverage. You don't need to have these man corners that, you can have a lesser player or a player who doesn't have as much experience.
Yeah, you could disguise certain players. Obviously, you need to have some talent there. But, a Marcus Epps, right? The Eagles really like Marcus Epps. He's a little bit limited athletically and can't do all the things that you would like to see from a young safety. But, again, some of the acquisitions that they made, we're talking about Jordan Davis now, I agree with you wholeheartedly, Mike. I think that it does sort of mask some of the other deficiencies somewhere else because of what he's able to do and affect all three levels of the defense.
All right, I'm going to get your take on the Juergens pick. Were you a fan of where they got him and the thought process there? I mean, I'm not ripping the player. I don't know if the player's going to be good or not. I mean, I get it, but was the value in that spot for Juergens in your mind?
Well, I'm certainly not going. I totally understand the logic. I think I'm of the belief that they could have traded down possibly and gotten Cam Juergens. But I also, on the other side of that coin, is if you're that strong in your conviction, you believe in the player, you don't wait and think, I'm going to trade back a few spots and grab him there. You're aggressive and you take the player that you want, that you envision being your long-term center, and that's what they did. So Jason Kelce spoke really highly of him, saw a lot of his game in him. Obviously, if the Eagles can get anything close to what Jason Kelce provided for the Eagles since 2011, they're going to be pretty happy with that pick. And yeah, he's in all likelihood he's going to be redshirting this season. I don't know that he has guard versatility. Yep. A little light in that area, in my opinion. But I mean, he's going to be their long-term center, and he gets to learn behind one of the best to ever do it in Jason Kelce. So was there another
guy on the board in that spot that you said perfect for right here, or was there not? Like Roseman said, look, we could have reached on a corner or a safety, but was there, forget corner or safety, or maybe there was a corner or safety, but was there somebody there that you said that would have been a guy I would have targeted when they were on the board at 51?
And that's exactly where I was going. Look, Kyler Gordon was gone. Brisker went 3 picks earlier. So, and in my opinion, there wasn't it would have been a tremendous reach to go for a position of need there in the secondary. They took the best player on their board. I have to believe. We don't know what their board looks like, obviously, but I think to go for a safety or a corner just for the heck of it at that point, Mike, would have been reaching. So I think the Eagles stayed true to their philosophy, and they got in their mind a long-term option there at center to take over for when Kelce moves on.
All right, we're talking with Andrew DiCecco, Football for getting his recap of the picks, the draft. We'll take a look at the third pick here, Nakobe Dean. Obviously, everybody seems to be saying, steal of the draft. How was he here? Give me your assessment on how Dean got to this spot, and then we'll kind of dive into how he fits. But why was Dean available in the third round?
Well, he was a prolific college player, and by all accounts, he's a very high character guy. People seem to love him, and he's just a smart football player. Mike, the only reason why he fell that far had to have been coupled with his size. He's under 6 foot, and he's a little light, but mostly and led to the medical. He's a guy that Jeff outlined very well. I believe after the pick was made on Friday that, you talk about the knee tendonitis. He tore his labrum at one point. He had the pec injury. So I think that may have scared a lot of teams off. They may have not.
No, he's saying.
They may have not.
Now, Andrew, he's saying, he quoted by saying there was stuff out there that wasn't true, and it's cost me some money.
Well, yeah, I mean, so you got to wonder what it is. There's so many different things. There's so much smoke around draft time that you never know what's true or what's not. Obviously, there was something out there that enough teams passed on it multiple times. So, I mean, I'm sure teams do their due diligence, and I'm sure there was a reason. But I think it probably had to do with durability concerns.
So this is an interesting one because I don't know if the Eagles thought that he was going to be there, and then it's like, well, he's here, we might as well take him. How does the linebacker room now look in your mind in terms of snaps, plays together? If you are setting your defense, is it Dean and Taylor, Dean and White, T.J. Edwards? Where does he fit in? I mean, all of a sudden the linebackers are a very interesting training camp battle.
Yeah, I think I would probably go Kaiser White and Kobe Dean if he's ready to go from day one. Put him out there. He's going to pick up the system fast. He's exactly what that second level needs. Very explosive, dynamic player, astute football IQ, terrific blitzer. He gives Jonathan Gannon a lot more flexibility as well. I think the addition of having a guy like Jordan Davis there, it's going to continue to keep him clean. And we saw that. We saw how effective he was playing behind him at Georgia. And then Kaiser White is also tremendously athletic. And obviously, he has that former safety background, tackling machine, sideline-to-sideline range. Those two guys right there give the Eagles probably the best complementary tandem to really effectively attack the intermediary levels of the field. And I do think that they have something to offer coming downhill and playing the run as well. And from a blitzing standpoint, I think he's going to be able to do a lot of different things, Jonathan Gannon, that is, with those two guys. And T.J. Edwards is solid, but he's relatively a one-dimensional player. You have to pick your spots when you're going to use him in there, and he's not somebody you really want out there covering tight ends or running backs out of the backfield with regularity.
All right, Kyron Johnson is a very interesting guy because it is a team that neglects linebackers. They took another one. He's a sideline-to-sideline kind of guy, very good athlete. Is he a guy that you're intrigued by, or is he, I don't want to say just a special teamers because the Eagles do need some special teams help, but do you view him as anything more than that?
Well, it's kind of hard to say now without really seeing what he's able to show in training camp and the preseason. I liked his tape at Kansas. He's a little undersized, 6 foot, 235, very athletic, very fluid. Has some edge background. Very similar to Patrick Johnson, I think, except I think he's a lot more athletic than Patrick Johnson. I think he's going to be able to help out on special teams right away and be a core member there. That would be his calling card and ticket to the final roster if he's able to shine in that area in the preseason. And I envision him being a backup Sam linebacker behind Hassan Reddick, and there's a number of other guys who are going to be vying for that position as well. But I think that he'll offer good blitzing potential and he'll be able to do some different things if he's able to pick up the system. But I think right away, if he's able to contribute on special teams and work his way into the rotation and somehow, I think that is a feasible possibility based on what I've seen from him during his years at Kansas.
And then the last pick is Grant Calcutta, a tight end, and 6'4", 240, a guy who can catch the ball, very interesting route runner. I mean, I feel like Calcutta might be a player in the 6th round that we're, maybe talking about a little bit more. Calcutta, to me, is a player.
Calcutta, to me, he has training camp darling written all over him. I'm saying he's going to probably make the team, but he's going to be one of those guys that routinely you're going to hear makes a circus catch or stoneballed somebody as a block. It's something that he's going to do every day is going to stand out. And the fact that there isn't really anybody behind Dallas Goedert, you almost want to, if you're a fan, you almost want to will it to happen because J.J. Arcega-Whiteside has seemingly worn down his welcome, even though he's at a new position right now. But I think that the one thing to be wary about with him is he does have a long-standing concussion history, which is a little scary. And but other than that, he's a very intriguing player. I think he's an advanced route runner. Played a lot of football in college, and is an interesting complement opposite Dallas Goedert. I think that he can also be a good red zone option and security blanket for Jalen Hurts, which the Eagles really do need because they need to continue to add some size to that pass catching contingent.
All right, so we wait all year, we talk about it, we overanalyze it. At the end of the day, Philadelphia. Were you impressed with the weekend, I guess you should say, that Howie Roseman and the Philadelphia Eagles, they had 10, they ended up with 5, but was it a solid 5 where you say, all right, they put in the work and they got the job done?
Yeah, I thought it was a brilliant use of resources from Howie Roseman. I thought that they went in there clearly with a plan. They stayed true to their philosophy. They ended up coming out with a top receiver. And, you and I have talked for a few weeks now, and I said that the Eagles had positioned themselves to where they needed a receiver that could step in and play right away opposite Devontae Smith because they had waited so late in the game to find someone. And they end up getting a guy who I think has a chance to break the 1,000-yard barrier this season for the Eagles, which would be the first time since, I believe, 2014. And, 6'1", 220, big, strong, physical guy, complements the wiry Devontae Smith and I think that they're going to be a prolific tandem this year. You got your center of the future by all accounts. You have a guy in Jordan Davis that could step right in there, plug the hole in the running game, and we outlined all the things that he's going to be able to do to help the defense as a whole. And then you got a couple intriguing guys late in the draft, and then of course Nakobe Dean that you landed in the third round that may end up starting week 1. I mean, how could you find any flaw in their process last weekend? Would you like to have seen a corner somewhere in there? Yeah, but I would also say this, Mike. Steve Nelson was added in July. Ronald Darby was acquired in August. You can't shut the door on the option of on the possibility of the team adding someone late down the road here. Yeah. I have a hard time envisioning the team being okay with going into training camp with Tay Gowan and Kerry Vincent and Mac McCain and Zach McPherson and down the line.
I agree with you there. I know James Bradbury's name keeps getting brought up. We'll see what happens with him and the Giants. If it's not him, I think there's somebody that's a veteran that gets released or cut not because they can't play, but because they can't get paid. The team doesn't want to pay that person anymore. Right. So keep your eye on stuff like that for safety and corner. Mini camps this weekend. And just real quick, you touched on the deal to get A.J. Brown, but how he fits in, and more importantly, what he does for Devonta Smith and how he adds to Dallas Goedert. I combined Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert there. See what I did? Dallas Goedert, what does A.J. Brown do for the pieces that were already here?
Well, now the pressure's off Devonta Smith. I think he's going to get a little bit more. He'll get some free releases. I think Dallas Goedert, when they got into the red zone, you knew exactly who they were going to, Mike. He was the only guy with any size, and he had that leaping and contested catch ability. And with A.J. Brown, you have to worry about the short to intermediate levels of the field, right? Because he's someone that he's almost like a running back after he gets the ball. He's very physical after he catches the football. And you have to be mindful where he is. And now you're able to have, your 1A and 1B, right? And now the pressure's off Devonta Smith. I think he's going to have an even bigger sophomore campaign, an even more prolific sophomore campaign. And I think Dallas Goedert is going to have a chance to thrive even more than he did last season because teams aren't going to be able to just key on him when they get in the red zone. So I think it gives them optionality. And like I said, I think he could be the first Eagles receiver, A.J. Brown, that is, to break the 1,000-yard barrier since I guess it was Jeremy Maclin, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, 2014. I was going to say, does one of these guys finally end that drought? You seem to answer that there. And, of course, the mini camps all get ready to go this weekend, so some of these players will actually be out on the field. It's a beautiful thing. We got games on the schedule. The schedule release is coming out on the 12th. By the way, the Eagles will not play in Mexico. I know some people were wondering if they were going to play Arizona in Mexico City. That is not happening. The Cardinals will play the 49ers. The London games got announced today as well. Philadelphia not a part of any of the international games, but we'll have the schedule. We'll have mini camps. We've got the third or fourth phase, whatever you want to call it, of free agency. Football at 4 has you covered right here on the Sports Bash. He's Andrew DiCecco. Check him out over at InsideTheBirds.com. Andrew, appreciate it, bud.
You got it, Mike. Take care.
Always enjoy Andrew's insight and analysis, especially when it comes to talking draft. And now we get into the mini camps and the next phase of this offseason.